So Joseph was very sick, and Mum finally just went to the post office and asked the woman, for the doctor. So the doctor came, and both Benjamin and Joseph were rushed to the hospital. But Joseph, he was very advanced and they couldn't save him, and Ben nearly died. But he made it, and the rest of us also had gotten sick, and so we got treated before we got into that danger zone. Now, of course, that caused a serious grieving, and Mum never got over it. So, but Mum also broke with that church because it was, as far as we know, they weren't even sympathetic to her. There was a lot of blame on them, on Mum and Dad. As far as I know, the attitude was, your child died because you didn't have enough faith. Now, this is how I understand it. There are also other sides to the story, but this is the way it was given to me. I was 2 years old when Joseph passed away, so I don't remember much. And so we were basically, Mum was estranged from the church. Dad continued with it because that was their Russian community. Mum and Dad had to learn English, and it wasn't easy for them. I remember Mum used to go to language classes in Canley Vale School. They had language classes in the evenings for migrants, and Mum went to learn English there, and I would go with her, and she learnt some, but for her it was difficult because she had 7 children, and they all the looking after the kids during the day. She said she'd sit in the class and her eyes would be closing, so it wasn't something that she continued with. But they learned English eventually, and they could understand it and speak it, to a certain degree. We used to translate, help with translating. But back to when they first came. Now, Galina, she left. When they came, there was some problem with Galina and Dad. Dad did not treat Galina as he should have, and I'm not going to go into the details, but she was abused. She'd been abused for since when Mum and Dad got together. So when she came to Australia, she was 16, and there was a disagreement, and she left after having physical altercation with my father, and he hurt her, and she left. So she was 16, and she had to teach herself basically English and make her way, and she did very well. She spoke, she could read and write English. She loved to read, and she loved different philosophies. She had a very inquiring mind. She was talented, artistic, and so anyway, so we know that she went to live in the city to get work. She did waitressing. That was mainly what she would do when she would work. She liked to dance. She was learning dancing, but she hurt her thigh. She wanted to get ahead, and so she was doing her stretches, and she wanted to do the splits. She wanted to learn to do the splits, and she just was pushing ahead, and so she tore her ham muscle, I think, hamstring, and so she had to give that up, and so she didn't. She was disappointed. She got married to Danny Johansson, and they had Terry. Danny got into some trouble with the law. He was an illegal migrant, and he was in prison for a short time. Well, I don't know, maybe a year. I don't know how long it was, but when he came out, he was a different person, and he'd been abused in prison, and he was just a different person. He was messed up, and so their marriage was dissolved. And so Terry, Galena would look after Terry but from time to time he would stay with us as our little brother in our family. His grandma would look after him. And then Galena got married to Vladimir Tansev and had Svetlana. And then that didn't work out over time. And then she had a relationship with Wayne Ford, and they had Adam. So, where are we up to? So we've covered coming to Australia and growing up in Australia. First of all it was Bonnyrigg, and then after a few years, I think when I was already, even before I went to school, so I think I went to school about 5 or 6, and I turned 6 in the year I went to school, so that would have been 1960. And I think we moved from Bonnyrigg a few years before that, and we lived in a small, another shed, because Mum and Dad didn't have much money, and he was building our home. There were a lot of poor people in Australia, and people had to work hard for a little, not much money. And so Dad had to build our house a little bit at a time. So first of all, they built the shed at the back, which I remember that. The kitchen had a dirt floor. It was a hard packed clay, and we had a primer stove. We didn't have electricity, as far as I know, there at first. We had a primer stove, and it's a tall thing with a blue flame. And in the winter it was cold. But within a couple of years, he built the first part of the proper part of the house. And that was like luxury. And then over time, the whole house was built. It was really well done. He did a good job. And Ben was old enough to help him, and so he used to help. And Mum, I remember Mum working hard too, doing the building too, because he was just Dad, and they couldn't afford to pay labourers, so everyone who could pitched in. We lived everyone there, and most of them moved back to Russia. Dad had an aunt. No, he had an aunt so he had a cousin. And so his cousin, Onya, her name was, her mother was Mironya, who was Dad's aunt. So Mironya and her daughter Onya and Onya's daughter Lena all came out to Australia, and they came to live, and they lived with us for a while. And so we do have those relatives. She's our cousin once removed, Lena, and she's got some children, and they live around Adelaide. So as far as I know, Dad's sister lives somewhere around Vladivostok. One of Mum's sisters lived in Semipalatinsk, but Mum's family would only write just to let her know that her mother passed away. And I remember when Mum got that news, and I might have been about 10 years old, and that was really sad for Mum. And then, I don't know, maybe 10 years later, I don't know how long it was, but then her father passed away. Yeah, so, that's all I can think of right now, just to bring you up to date to our generation.